That's why I had to push mine up against this. Hey Facebook, come in. When you come in, like, share the video, invite others in on the video. We're going to be talking about cancer and mental health. But the information that you're going to receive, you can use it for any life-threatening disease or diseases, period. So like and share. What's wrong? Maybe because I got to sit back, that's why. Once I sit back. Hey, Instagram. I know, that's why I'm like, what's the edge of the chair? Okay, waiting on to get my cue to go live. Hey, Patricia. All right, 701. Okay, thank you.
That's right. He was waiting.
I can't hear now. Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with Leader Rochelle, where we move away from awareness towards action on this Motivational Monday. And as always, I'm so excited you have chosen to tune in today. We're going to be talking about cancer and mental health. Before we get started, the show is actually being sponsored by Sisters Working It Out. They are a health advocacy in motion, and they are always looking for cancer ambassadors to help them go out in the community to educate individuals on cancer. You can go to sistersworkingitout.org for more information. I encourage you all to stay connected with me on all forms of social media. I am on Instagram, Periscope, Twitter, as well as Facebook. Just type in @WarriorsTalk1. You can also follow me on YouTube. All you need to do is type in Warriors Talk with Leader Rochelle. So for the next person that subscribed to my channel, I will be giving away a free t-shirt. So that's the next person that subscribed to my channel. Just type in Warriors Talk with Leader Rochelle. You can always call in. We would love to hear from you, 312-754-4333. And this show is actually being dedicated, because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, to supporting the fighters, admiring the survivors, and honoring the taken, and never ever giving up. Our healing verse is coming from Proverbs 12:25. It says, "Anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up." Awesome. So I'm excited, you guys. Come in, like, and share. Hey, Henry. Hey, Rhonda. Like and share the video. We're going to be talking about mental health as it relates to cancer. But like I said before, the information that you're going to receive, you can use it with any type of life-altering disease or diagnosis that you receive. So you can use this information. So I encourage you to like, share, and invite others in on the video. Hey, Tony. So before we start, my guest, he is not a stranger to Warriors Talk. But the reason why he's here is because he has the expertise. He is a community liaison as it relates to mental health. And so we are going to, if you have any questions, I need you guys to drop the questions in the comments. You can also call in. Hey, Rhonda. You can also call in. He's an author. He's a motivational speaker. He is a future doctor. And he is here to give us a 411 on mental health as it relates to cancer. And again, we can use this information. So hello, Runnell Townsend.
What's going on? Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. This information that you're going to be sharing today is very important. I just had my third annual event, and we talked about removing the stronghold of cancer residue, because we do know with any disease diagnosis, it leaves behind a residue once you're done with treatment. We always think about the physical, but we never think about treating the mental, and the mental is just as important, if not more important. And so he's here to talk about this information. So again, like and share so that you guys can get this important information with and share with all the people in your life that you love. So Runnell, what exactly is mental health? What would be your definition?
My definition, it's subjective, but you have your by the books definition, where it's your cognitive, your behavioral, where you're talking about emotional well-being of oneself. So That's your book definition, you know, but it's still subjective to a person. You know, you can't tell somebody how they feel mentally because we don't know what's going on. But cognitively, behavior, and, you know, that's the social well-being. That's mental health, all in one.
Awesome. So I hope you guys got that. You wrote it down, you recorded it, because what we're going to do is we're going to dive right in. So when I think about a mental illness, I mean, it's a stigma that comes along with that. And I think that's why a lot of people really shy away from getting help when it comes to their mental state, because people will say, oh, you're crazy. Or they'll talk about, if you are a believer, they'll say, oh, where's your faith? You know, you don't need to get help, you need to get prayer. And it's fine to do all of that, but at the end of the day, when you go home and lights are out and those feelings are heavy on your mind and you're sitting in darkness, what do?
That's heavy. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is something that's prevalent in our community where they say, pray about it, you know, or, you know, just take some time to yourself. But oftentimes that's just not it. That's just not the solution. And it really goes back into us not getting help, back to the Tuskegee experiment back in 1932, you know, where there was wrongdoing in the healthcare industry towards African American men specifically. And what it ended up happening was, you know, it was a trickle down negative connotation with the healthcare industry and us and how we felt. So, you know, that treatment towards us, generation to generation, it was taught to not trust doctors.
Right.
And, you know, as the generations go on, it becomes, you know, we don't want to go get help for anything because that trust factor isn't there. So it takes folks like yourself, you know, using your platform, folks, community activists, to really go out and re-educate our community on these resources and re-educate them on what needs to be done in order to seek the help that we all need.
Wow, that's powerful when you say the distrust. That's the one main word I heard you say, is that we have a lack of trust when it comes to that. And we can understand why,
Right.
but when your health is at stake, when your body, and this is the only temple that you have, I mean, at some point in time, you have to say, okay, I'm going to have to trust somebody. And if enough of us are not in that particular field, for we could say, well, I see somebody that looks like me, then maybe I can trust that person. But we do have doctors in that field, and we don't even trust those people to go get help.
Exactly.
And not only to mention that, when you have people around you that know something is wrong, you're a little off, you're not acting like your normal self, I would think that those people around me would say, hey, she's normally bubbly, she's normally outgoing, and she's always on the go. And lately, I've been retreating, I'm in isolation, I'm not communicating. We have to start looking at the people around us to make sure that we can identify when something is not right.
Right.
Because if something is going on with you mentally, you may not know to reach out and say, hey, something is wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And so I think that people around us should kind of be alert to say, hey, something's not right with her.
I agree. You know, I am my brother's keeper, and, you know, you're your sister's keeper. And it's one of those things where we have to hold each other accountable. We have to be there for one another in those situations where, you know, sometimes we might feel like we are alone, you know. So, you know, you when you see somebody not being themselves and out of character, it's up to us is to notice that, right? And then indirectly call it out or provide that help. But oftentimes what you see nowadays is we actually add fuel to the fire, and, you know, we're not necessarily there for them in the way that they need to be, or encourage them as they seek the help or talk to somebody that they need to talk to. Or there's a level of embarrassment to them, you know, so it's hard to share those moments.
I totally believe that, especially if you have somebody that maybe is always on the top of their game, you know, and then all of a sudden you get a diagnosis and this is weighing heavy on you, and certain things you just have to let go and let it just work itself out. And so you're preoccupied with other stuff going on, and then you start to not be as sharp as you was, and then people start to notice, oh, that person used to be really good at this or used to do that. You start remembering things because your mind is preoccupied with something totally different. And so at that point, if you're not able to say something is wrong, then I think being our brother and our sister's keeper, that we should be on alert. And if it's shame there, if it's a person that's, always has been strong and don't want to look like they're, beneath anyone, then it's a way that you come to them and talk to them, hey, do an intervention, you need help. Because if you don't get them help, then they can maybe harm themselves. Because we do know that people that have mental health issues, some of them commit suicide.
Yeah.
And you can't help them at that point.
That's true. And that's where it comes down to. When you notice these things, what are you going to do? It boils down to love. At the end of the day, anytime I speak about any issues in society today, it all boils down to love and what kind of love we're receiving. Excuse me. And so what action would we take in order to help someone? That's the question. When someone, like you mentioned, if they're diagnosed with a chronic illness, what's going to be done? How do you know what that person is going through? What kind of help are you going to provide? And there's tons of resources out there, that a lot of folks don't know about. And, that's why I'm a prime advocate to, deal with people and talk to them in a certain way, because at the end of the day, you never know what someone's going through. And I hate to have encountered or engaged with someone and they were at the apex of whatever they were experiencing, and then it just went over the top and, something bad happened.
Exactly. I was thinking about mental illness and it being underdiagnosed. When you say you hate to see someone leave your presence and then something is wrong with them, do you think that it's underdiagnosed when it comes to mental illness?
Oh yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. It's always downplayed, whereas we're so quick to say, oh, that person's bipolar, or that that they're depressed. Depression is real.
Yes.
And all the things that go on in the world today, depression, there's levels to depression. Some folks can get deeply into it, while others, they might just be quiet and seclude themselves for it temporarily. But ultimately, there's still help where we can go get. There's different programs out in the world today in our communities that we just don't know about. There's intensive outpatient programs where you can go and see a psychiatrist, a therapist. There's different levels to it for the care that you can get. And you can see that person, whether it be weekly, twice a week, 3 times a week. It depends on the severity of, how often you need to be seen. But there's other programs out there where there's a such thing as a crisis stabilization unit.
Oh, wow.
It's actually done and built right now out at Holy Cross Hospital over on 68th in California. And what it is it's an emergency room that is for mentally ill community members, and there's just tons of facilities like this out in our communities. We don't know.
Okay, what if there's somebody who they don't have insurance? I mean, we have a lot of homeless individuals who are maybe veterans, and I know they can go to the VA, but we have a lot of homeless people who are dealing with mental illness who may have been released from prison and they don't have anywhere to go, or just homeless period out on the street. And they say, hey, I don't have an address, I don't have insurance, I know that all these resources exist, but how can I get these resources and I don't have an address?
Right, so that's where it gets tricky, and that's where it comes to organizations collaborating and making that difference, right? So who would you guess would typically encounter someone that's homeless? It's a CPD person, someone in the Chicago Police Department. One, because there's some sort of disturbance, or they are going through an episode or a crisis, and they get the police called on them, and the police. They have a crisis intervention team that is out in the community, and they have a vehicle that's specifically served for them, and they help get the services that they need, and they're connecting them to certain facilities here in the Chicagoland area. Now, whether they have insurance or not, there are organizations that will still care for you. One, because you have to be cared for if you're being admitted into the emergency room. Two, even if you don't have insurance information, there are facilities out there that have a scaled program where sometimes you could pay little to nothing, right? And even with no insurance, there's still resources that they have to help get you connected, right? And most of the folks that we do see, like you mentioned, are veterans who are homeless. And yes, they can go to the VA but a lot of the times they end up getting lost in the system.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how often do you see people that come, maybe that one time, and then they don't come back?
Right. So there's the repeats. There's the folks that are repeats they know the system. They're so good with the system, and especially when it gets cold, they're going to go to a lot of the inpatient units that you see around here, like at Mount Sinai Hospital, Holy Cross, Mercy, depending on where they're at. They know the system. They know what they need to say or do to get in there and get some warmth.
Okay.
But they're also experiencing a mental illness or going through a crisis. So, your question is, how often is it happening? It's happening often for our homeless folks.
Wow.
But they know the system better than our educated people that really need the help as well. Not saying one is worse than the other, but mental health is across the entire spectrum. No matter if you're educated, no matter what level you're on the socioeconomic status.
Wow. So if you're just tuning in to Warriors Talk, we are talking with the community liaison, Runnell Townsend, and he is giving us basically the 411 on cancer and mental health. And if you are dealing with any type of disease that is life-altering and you are feeling some type of backlash behind it that you just can't resolve yourself, then this information is for you. So hey, to everybody that's just tuning in, hey Tracy, hey Marie. So right now, the question that I had is, a lot of times when we're diagnosed with cancer, like a lot of people sometimes don't get in early enough, they're underdiagnosed. Do you think that the mental health condition is just like certain diseases is underdiagnosed when people come in? And not only that, is it untreatable? It just as deadly if untreatable, like cancer?
Yes. It's one of those things where you have commercials, you have healthcare providers, everyone's doing some sort of outreach where they're encouraging people to go get tested for certain illnesses so that we can prevent the onset of it or it beginning in its later stages that become more fatal, right? They say that once you're diagnosed sooner, the chances of preventing a fatal result are greater, right? And it then boils down to us taking action. So sometimes we have to hold ourselves accountable where we know what we need to do. We're scared of the results, so we just don't go and get tested, So
that's funny because a lot of people, since we're talking about mental health and it's in the month of breast cancer, a lot of women are afraid to go in and get that mammogram done. And I believe that it's something psychological going on with that. We know that fear sets in, anxiety, you may have depression, especially if you found a lump and you're scared to go in and get it checked out. So I really believe that all of this just goes hand in hand when we're talking about mental illness. And a lot of times when you get the diagnosis, they don't deal with the mental illness portion of it. I can tell you a lot of women who have went in and they have not even asked them the question, are you having any type of issues? Are you depressed? And they know with this diagnosis that all of that just comes with it. But they're so busy rushing you through the treatment process to make sure that they ain't getting their money when it comes to the treatment. When you're done with treatment, you're just left out there.
Right.
And if you don't bring it to your doctor's attention and say, hey, I'm depressed. I'm not, I'm sleeping more. I'm not being interactive with my family. I'm having thoughts of suicide. Most people are not going to offer up that information just freely, So I had to talk with my doctor. She actually asked me, and she had this list where she went through and just asked me a series of questions. And then after she asked me the question, she was like, do you want me to put you on some type of medicine? And I'm like, no. because I'm okay. I mean, I'm all right. I don't need anything,
Right.
you know. Depression doesn't, certain depressions, and you can verify or not, you can go into a temporary depression when you go through something like this. It's just that if you stay under for a long period of time. Talk about that.
That's deep right there. You know, so once we're diagnosed, you know, folks become diagnosed with a certain chronic illness, there are different levels to depression. We undergo this, there's a grieving phase, right? And there's different levels. There's 5 stages of that. There's you have denial, you have anger, you start bargaining, then you go through that depression, and then there's the level of acceptance. And there is no chronological order for it. It just totally depends on the person. But like you said, it can be something that's immediate. It could be a couple months, it could be a week, it could be a couple years. You know, it can even be fatal. But it's totally up to you as to how long you're gonna decide to stay under in that dark, sunken place. You know, so and there's resources, like you said. A lot of it's not voluntary information. It's not just gonna be given to you. They're gonna focus on the primary diagnosis, which was whatever chronic illness that was. And in this instance, is breast cancer, which there's close to 270 new cases here in the United States in 2018 alone. You know, so, and it's becoming more prevalent, and there's more organizations providing that awareness, but who's actually going to go out there and tell folks where can you go?
Yes.
Especially like you mentioned, if you don't have the insurance, or you don't have the money to pay for these kinds of tests. And then what kind of help are you going to get once you are diagnosed? You know, so a lot of the times it's simply asking, if you do have a primary care doctor or a PCP, asking that PCP, is there help out there for me for depression? I'm not taking this lightly. I'm feeling a certain kind of way where I need some help. I need to talk to somebody that's licensed, not just my family, not just my friends, because their perspective is totally different than someone that, is a little more educated. I'm not saying that friends and family isn't going to help, but it's a different perspective that, a lot of folks in our community frown upon. It's not necessarily taking a pill or some medicine. Right. It's not always just that. Sometimes it's literally just compartmentalizing your thoughts, your experiences, what you're going through, and what's the plan of action that you're going to have in order to get back to that right state of mind.
But I think people are afraid of that. Everybody don't know that you don't necessarily have to take a pill. People always think, they're going to dope me up with some type of medicine, then I can't wean myself off of it. If I stop taking it, all these side effects are going to happen. And so they're like, no, I'm not talking to anybody about this. I'll just try to deal with it on my own. Or they self-medicate. They may drink. They may start doing other drugs to try to drown out what they're feeling.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Oftentimes when we become in this depression state, we seek a different kind of feeling, what we call a high, right? Because we don't want to think about what we're really dealing with. So we drink, we smoke, we participate in other extracurricular drugs. When there's some people that can take that state of depression, I myself, as an example, I went through a phase of depression where, my out was writing. And that was my therapy, and a lot of folks don't know what that is for them. So it really takes having someone to help you find what that is, to have that therapy, and not really going into that sunken place with alcohol or drug addictions, because then you start getting in trouble with the law. You start having all these other negative outcomes that you can't get back, You're just going to have a domino effect of negative things happening in your life. And then you're going to become more depressed and more into that sunken place. So it's super important is to figure that out, and talk to the right people, ask for help. We don't ask for help. We're so prideful, and you made the mention of folks committing suicide. The levels of the suicide rates are 80% greater in men committing those suicides.
Wow.
And I think it's an attributing factor is because men are prideful and don't want to seek help. And then as it pertains to these chronic illnesses, I really think it's just so important, as we're all dealing with different things, specifically breast cancer for this month. If you know that it's in your genetics, it's in your family history, it's really important to be proactive in that. And I know tons of people that are, but I know tons of people that aren't because they're scared. So it's like you got to take the lesser of two evils, where if you know, then sooner you can prevent, or you can not know and just let fate do its thing, and it's both not so great situations and can have a negative impact on our mental health. But I'd rather take that one where I could diagnose it sooner and get the help that I need and live a healthy lifestyle afterwards. So it takes folks like us to fight that battle and help folks.
That makes sense, and it works for all diseases, anything that you're afraid of. And I listened to Will Smith, and he talks about how everything that you want or you want to experience is on the opposite side of fear. And once you get over there, once you cross over, you feel that joy. And once you go get that mammogram and you get the word back that everything is all clear, then you can relax for the next 11 months. But you got to be touching yourself. You got to be doing your own breast exams while you're at home.
Right. Because
when you're 40 and you go get that exam, they're only doing it once a year.
Right.
And so you have to remember, if someone in your family had breast cancer 10 years prior, so I was diagnosed at 43, so my daughters have to start at 33 to get themselves checked out. I'm telling them start earlier than that, just to be on the safe side, because they know that mommy had it. So this is some good information. I see that we have comments, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, but we're going to address Facebook. So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to address Facebook. So, okay. I know he what was the name of the song? I forgot it, so that's why I didn't say it. Okay, Facebook, I'm sorry. We're not ignoring you guys. We are here. Tracy said, I'm just starting to identify with depression on a personal level. Now, Tracy is a breast cancer survivor, and I think she's 8 years out right now. And it's just now hitting her. The depression is just now hitting her right now. So she's dealing with that right now on a personal level. I think sometimes we'd be busy, because when you go through the diagnosis and you be so busy trying to get back to normal that you don't really address that issue.
That's real. Sometimes we label things like we think we're good, and you can't put a timestamp on when our bodies decide to experience this.
Author Marie Abega says some people just don't see a way out when dealing with depression, which leads to suicide, which is the first step. I know, but I forgot it. We're listening to Latrice Crawford, author, but you guys can't hear it on Facebook because I don't want them to block the video. He about to come in here and say, I told you what the name was. Marie, that was a great point. Hey, April. Carol said, I don't understand taking antidepressants when one of the side effects is suicidal thoughts. Oh, okay. Can you explain that?
So there's tons of medications out there that have all these different side effects, but it's up to us is to, one, do our homework, then two, talk to our prescribing physician who is prescribing us these medicines, and then ask that question. I am no medical doctor, I don't want to give any false information, but it is super important to ask those questions, especially at the time of which they've diagnosed, and then two, prescribed. Use that time. I don't care if they're in a rush and trying to get out of the exam room with you. That's your time. That's your time that you're paying for. Right? So sit down and ask them those questions. Now, like I said, there's so many side effects to so many different medications out there, and it's just super important to ask that. I don't like I said, I don't want to give any medical advice in terms of that, but really ask your provider why take a medicine that's a antidepressant, but can give suicidal thoughts.
So that's where they should be doing your research. When they say, oh, I'm going to prescribe you this, you're like, okay, before you take it, go do your research so you'll know what the side effects are.
Right.
And then you can come back with an argument and say, no, can I try something different?
I'd rather be depressed than sit and think about killing myself.
Right. Lesser two evils. Tracy
Right.
says she's exhausted. Depression makes you exhausted.
It does. You know, it's a battle between you and you. And, you know, I'm always an advocate of getting closer to God and saying those prayers, you know, so continue to do that. But when it is exhausting to the point where you feel trapped, you have to find it out. Like what makes you free? What provides that serenity to you? What provides that peace? You have to start asking yourself that question so that you can start doing those actions more. You know, if I continuously tell myself if I have negative thoughts every single day, that's I'm feeding into negativity. But if I practice something that's giving me peace, serenity, and just I can't even, you know, happiness.
Okay, I'm sorry. Marie said I read her question wrong. She asked, what is the first step for someone who can't see their way out? Okay.
Well, the first step is, you know, acknowledging that you're experiencing something, and then 2, seeking help. That help can be different for different people, whether that be a support system that right in your immediate circle, or 2, actually talking to your provider. It's super important to figure out what kind of help you need. So you have to start asking questions to your loved ones, your close ones. Don't feel trapped in and try to figure things out on your own, because all you're going to do is in your own mind make up solutions and create these thoughts that might even negatively impact how you're thinking. So it's always good to get that different perspective, that professional perspective. So don't feel ashamed to say I need to go talk to a doctor. I need to go talk to a therapist. Take that first step and go figure it out. You have to. You owe it to you. You owe it to your body, which is your temple, your mental, and your spiritual well-being.
Wow. Coach T says he's talking to Marie. Don't give in to negative self-talk. As long as you're breathing, you have a chance to do something different. That's Coach T giving her some positive affirmations. This is coming from Wit. She says, my daughter was taking an anxiety medication and suicidal thoughts was one of the side effects. And sure enough, she experienced it. I had to fight the doctors for other methods of treatment. To God be the glory. No medicine, no more uncontrollable thoughts.
You know, that's a blessing. Sometimes we know ourselves more than anyone. You know, not a doctor who studied medicine. So we have to take into consideration how we know ourselves, but also still listening to that professional advice while filtering in what you need. Like, you know you more than anyone. So if you feel like you're vulnerable, if you feel like you might be, it's super important just to know you, you know, and thank God in this situation, you knew your daughter, and you made a decision. You made a decision and you were the victor in that decision.
And you have to be an advocate for yourself and for the people that you care about. Because if not, then you'll get pushed all these different medicines and these different things that you really don't want in your body. So we're getting ready to come back, you guys. And we are back. This is Lady Rochelle Warriors Talk, where we move away from awareness towards action. And I am sitting here with my community liaison for mental health, Runnell Townsend. Hey, Runnell.
Hey.
And he is giving out some good advice to the listeners. And I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your shares. I appreciate your likes. And Marie said that you did answer her question. So she thank you so much for that great answer.
Awesome. So happy to help.
And Tracy says, she says, I really do have to get in the presence of God. Otherwise, I would feel hopeless. I think people underestimate that. When you say that, people really underestimate what it feels like to be in the presence of God and how much peace you can have when you are.
I agree. I will always, I don't care what platform I'm on, invited or not, you can't ignore God. You can't ignore that higher power, and getting close to it. Once you become lost, you find it, then you have that testimony. You never know until you're actually lost. And I remember going down that road, and it was a wonderful feeling to find it. And oftentimes I look back on that dark place, and I'm happy to share that testimony. I'm happy to share the moments when I was going to church on Sundays and every Wednesday for Bible study, and shedding tears because of whatever I was feeling in my own mind. I was ashamed because I went to the back of the church and I cried. But I still showed up, and I'm so grateful for the things God set on my heart because of that experience. And I just encourage everyone else that if you're going through something, to really start asking God some questions. Don't ask for outcomes, and hold yourself accountable to be very, very prescribed with what you're asking for and seeking answers for. Get that guidance, and don't just request outcomes. What am I to learn from this experience? What am I to learn from this depression? How can I be better from it? What am I going to be able to contribute to the world when I get out of this? And asking questions like that.
I always say the storm does not come to always kill you. Sometimes the storm comes to clear your path so you can walk into your God-ordained destiny. So if you're going through a storm, there's a reason why you're going through that storm. So when you come out on the other end, you come out a better person, and you'll be able to use your testimony to help and bless someone else. Terrence is giving counseling advice. He says to find a support team. Maria said that's super positive. She said that's super good information. I'm sorry. It's important to know. Terrence is also giving her things that she tell her to pick 5 things that she likes about herself that she can do. He says, what are you good at? Maria's good at a lot of things. He says, I know for depression, it can be hard to do. You can walk, you can talk, you can read, you can write, you can pray. And those are simple things that we don't really have to go out of our house to do any of those things. You can do it right in your own living room.
Exactly. And I'm so glad Terrence mentioned that. It's a fact that when it comes down to actually putting something to action, some folks need more support than others. And if you are one of those people that need a support system, you better surround yourself with an army. Get ready to go to battle with you, And like you said, if it's writing, what environment do you write best in? For me, it's, it can be in the house. It's usually when I'm driving.
Wow.
Or by the ocean. We got this beautiful lake out here. It's not the ocean, but it looked like the ocean. Use what we have in our environment. I know we got a lot of hate going on here in the city of Chicago, but it's also a beautiful city. People don't come here to visit for no reason. So really become a tourist in your own city, so to remove yourself from what you're going through mentally.
Yes, I know that's Terrence that's saying you have to go through to grow through. That's Coach T.
Absolutely.
Whit talks about her therapy, I guess, for her daughter is journaling, deep breathing, and some other exercises. Great topic. I wanted to talk about, Terrence says, when we change what we focus on changes. And that is so true. That is so true. I wanted to transition real quick into the different myths that come along with mental illness. And the first one is a lot of people think that mental illness is rare. Like, it won't happen to me. That's rare. That's some crazy person. Yeah. I'm sane.
We all crazy.
We all have a little cray-cray in us.
Right.
We do. So it says it's rare. How would you address that?
So it's one of the most common illnesses. You know, I'd even go as far as saying it's more common than the common cold. You know, and it's just one of those things that is, one, it's hard to diagnose, two, it's hard to treat because there's no direct treatment plan. It's contingent upon the person, and our anatomy it's made up totally different by the person, you know, and so it's not rare. So stop, you know, I encourage our communities to stop thinking that in our approach to any community member that we come across, you know, something might be disrespectful, something might be offensive, but then ask yourself, is that really out of hate, or is that a mental illness? You know, you really got to ask yourself those questions. And I think that if we treat everybody with that, you know, something is happening outside of the norm and assume that it's a mental illness,
Yes.
the world would be a better place.
Yes.
Because I try to adopt that mentality, and I'm like, that just didn't seem right. I'm wrong with that person. So I'm gonna let that slide right there. You know, we'll let a lot slide just under that assumption.
That's funny. Tracy said there's a blessing in the pressing. So number 2, myth about mental health in the United States, it says if they're mentally ill, they can get help, they just don't want to.
That's very true. Like we were talking about, you know, goes back to the Tuskegee experiment. You know, how we grew up in a household. You know, you're experiencing something, tell boys not to cry. You know, you go get your whooping. Go sit down before I give you something to cry about, or you know, pray about it, or you know, hug it out, you'll be all right. You know, and those are the common phrases that we hear in our generation, in our households growing up. And not to say, you know, treat everything like a mental illness. Because sometimes I'm a advocate of butt whoopings, so sometimes I might take a butt whooping.
Yeah.
But you know, when it comes to these mental illnesses, it's super important for us to treat it like it is. We just don't know. You just don't know.
So just err on the side of caution because you don't know. Terrence says, and don't be surprised if your support comes from strangers, because family may not. They may think you want some attention. Ain't nothing wrong with her. She just wants some attention. And they may not be there to help you. So you may have to reach out to strangers.
That's deep, Terrence. You know, I have the mindsets oftentimes where I want to be that person that I don't care who encounters me, I want to have made an impact on that person's life in whatever amount of seconds that I met them. You know, and like you said, it can be a stranger, and I've had it happen. Strangers just come up to me and just have me thinking, like, as I'm saying this, I had an experience a couple weeks ago, and it was a stranger just at a gas station. He impacted my life, and he spoke something onto me that just changed my perspective on things. And you just never know how powerful the tongue is.
Wow.
Or what support that could be, or how encouraging it could be.
That's so true. Whit said, I just left the hospital from visiting her nephew on the behavioral health unit when she got this notification. So she said, very timely.
Look at God.
Wow. Carol says, sometimes the fear of being locked away keeps you from seeking treatment because African American households fear what is not understood. Wow, Carol, that's powerful right there.
That's G. So like you said, what's not understood. How can you make sense of something you don't understand, or what's not normal to you? I think if we're open to different perspectives of life and different solutions and aren't necessarily narrow-minded, you know, it's something that we have to be advocates for, because it's changing a culture, and it's not going to happen overnight. So it's having these tough conversations being more open about things that we experience, you know, and sharing stories, sharing stories about what we've gone through. It's like, oh, I'm not the only person. The difference is that person that shared it went and got the help. I just didn't go get help yet.
Wow.
Wow.
This kind of reminds me of this quote that I read. It says, "Don't judge my story by the chapter you walked in on." So don't judge somebody's story because of the state that they're in right now. But instead of judging them, get some hopes. See what it is that they're going through before you just judge them or write them off.
I like that.
I think a lot of times we write off people because we don't know what's wrong with them or we don't know how to help them. So we just kind of write them off and go into our own little world. And then we find out, oh, Billy committed suicide. What's wrong with Billy? Billy was depressed. Girl, I thought Billy was acting funny. And Billy was sick. And we didn't want to take time to deal with what was going on. Maybe because we didn't know ourselves, because none of us are trained to know the signs of when somebody are depressed. I mean, you can look it up on the internet, but we're not trained to sit and talk and ask questions. We're not.
Exactly.
But I don't even want to say we can, when a person that you're used to being around all the time is not being themselves. Yes.
Yep.
And
that's deep. I like what you said. You just said something. Don't judge me by the chapter that you walk in on my life. And for me, you never know what someone's achieving or going through or what they're on to. And like I'll be transparent with you. So I'm writing my next book, and conversations that we have, whether it was via text message, us having conversation here on the air, it inspires me. And I'm thinking like there's certain things that I have to include or incorporate into a certain part of this book. And you just never know to what magnitude you're impacting someone and what they're doing in life. And I just feel like I'm on to something on this next book. And like these conversations, everyone here on Facebook Live is inspiring a new chapter.
yes.
So rather than writing off someone's chapter, help write it, complete it.
I like that. Wow. I have another quote. It says, "When you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person that you walked in the storm." That's what the storm is all about. So you never know. You're writing a book, so you said at one point you were depressed. Somebody could have wrote you off and been like, nah, he's just depressed. We're going to deal with him. He's about to do book number 2. So you don't know where that person is in their chapter. So Runnell, give some words of wisdom to somebody who may be depressed right now, or it may be somebody in their family who's depressed, or they don't know what's wrong with them. What kind of advice could you give to somebody to break the silence and to get help?
I would say, as you mentioned, going through a storm, and as we all go through our storms, we are not to come out in the same condition, right? So have faith that one, you're going to get out of whatever storm you're in, and once you're out of it, that your mindset is going to be changed. When I went through my storm, my mindset is different, so that anytime I feel the rain coming a little bit, I'm ready. I'm actually excited because 1, I'm about to learn something. 2, I'm about to go through something. 3, God got a huge blessing for me right around the corner. So like I'm excited about it. So I strap up and I'm ready. So embrace what you're going through. Seek it as a better tool to make you better. And then once you get out of it, figure out how you can change people around you so that they can get out of whatever they are going through. You need to be an advocate and a soldier for the experience that you just felt. But first and foremost, you got to go get the help. You got to go get the help. You have to acknowledge that you're going through something. And I think when you own that, you own it, then you can make a change.
Yes.
However you want. Own it. Don't be embarrassed about it either. You can't be, because you're not the only one. The person sitting next to you, the person looking at you right now, that you don't know is looking at you, is experiencing something similar. You don't have it worse than the next person. We're in it together. So I just encourage you, go do something about it.
Take action, you guys. You know what my slogan is: move away from awareness towards action. Do you have like a website or anything where someone can go if they have an issue with mental illness or something?
You know what? So there's different healthcare facilities around the community. I would encourage folks to, the best way right now is just to Google mental health near me, and it'll direct you. I do have a website that's more so empowering and encouraging on different topics. I use my daughter and myself to talk about different topics, and that's myloveempowers.com, MYLOV empowers.com. And but in terms of actually getting help, you can just use technology. It's 2018. Google mental health near me, and I promise you, it'll direct you to the nearest facility closest to you. And it's just a matter of getting up, going there, and asking for help, or even going to the nearest ER.
Yes.
If you go to the nearest ER, they will get you the help that you need. You just describe exactly how you're feeling, and they'll give you the resources you need. You just have to, one, get up and then make that call.
You gotta take action, you
Have
guys.
to.
Awesome.
So what's your slogan again?
Away from awareness towards action.
Boom. I like that.
So you guys know what to do. This was an amazing show. You gave out some very life-saving information. So I thank you guys for tuning in. Everybody, if you have not already liked and shared this video, do that. Before we go, I just wanted to make an announcement about Sisters Working It Out. They're having a 4th annual Day of Beauty. And this is for all cancer survivors, whether you're in battle right now or you are a caregiver of a survivor. It's going to be November the 10th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be at Liberty Full Gospel Church, 2233 West 79th Street in Chicago, and it's actually free. So it's so many things that are going to be going on. You can get mammograms, referral, blood pressure check, glucose check, HIV testing, flu shots. They're going to give away. They're going to do manicures, pedicures. They're going to do your eyebrows. They have people to do massages. We're going to do Zumba. They're going to feed you. It's going to be a continental breakfast, and then we're going to eat lunch. It's going to be a lot of amazing vendors there, and so you can actually go to sistersworkingitout.org, or you can call 312-754-3053. Now, you don't have to register for the event, but I'll go ahead and put the flyer on my page so that you can have that information. Another event is going on that same day, but this one is the same type of event, but it's just a different company. And this is given by Metropolitan Breast Cancer Task Force, where you can get a free mammogram. If you don't have insurance, they can get you through the system to where you can get a free mammogram. And theirs is going to be held at the Illinois Institute of Technology at Herman Hall Conference Center. It's at 3241 South Federal Street. And this is called Beyond October. So we know that breast cancer goes beyond October. So they're going to be doing the same exact things that they're going to be doing for Sisters Working Out. It's just a totally different organization. And guess what? It's free. They're also going to have workshops on health insurance, healthy eating, men's health as well. So I'll put these flyers on my page, you guys. You have any closing words, or are you done?
I appreciate you. I appreciate your advocacy and what you're doing here for our community. So thank you.
Thank you for being a part of it. I appreciate you as well. Warriors, you already know what to do. Keep thriving while surviving.